back to Let's Talk with Justin Thurber. How you doing this week, Jim?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this week you were emailing me a lot, and I was learning a lot about the state committee races and all the Republican bylaws. And I guess up in where next to Boston, they had a caucus this weekend that didn't go as planned. Can you give us a little backstory about that?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So the Mass GOP scheduled 4 caucuses throughout the state, and these were good because we want to fill some of the vacant state committee seats. So I myself was looking forward to these caucuses to fill state committee seats so we could start building the Republican Party. And this state committee caucus pretty much went off the rails right from the beginning. So one of the concerns with having this caucus in the past was that there was a lot of dispute about the RTC members, who was a member, who was not. But anyway, so this caucus was scheduled for the first Suffolk district, which is mostly parts of the Dorchester area. And what happened was there was, there was a mailer that was sent out. So there was 2 people backed by Baker that were selected to kind of run in this caucus. And because Dorchester has a big Vietnamese community, they sent out these mailers that was kind of pandering to the Vietnamese community. It was all in it was all in like Vietnamese language. They put some flags on it, but they didn't really do any. They have no idea of any of the history behind like Vietnam or any people in the community. So they sent out these mailers that had the communist flag, which is what most of the people in Vietnam fled from because of the communist oppression there. So they sent out these mailers with the communist flag on it. Obviously, the people receiving this mailer were highly offended. This is one of the most offensive mailers that you can imagine. So they were really upset about it. They responded back that they didn't want any part of the state committee caucus, which this was selected as the Vietnamese Senior Center was selected as a venue for this caucus. So they said they wanted nothing to do with it. And it pretty much just left the Mass GOP scrambling to find a new location. If you look at the Mass GOP bylaws, this is a clear violation. You have to send written notice of the time and location of the event 15 days beforehand. So they changed the venue literally within 24 hours of the state committee vote, and the whole thing was just like a complete
Complete
crap show
mess
from the start.
Well, that's I know we talk a lot about the GOP, and it always seems like we're picking on the current people who are running it, Amy Carnevale and things like that. But I hope through this show and through our discussions, right, like we're fair with everybody, and we just say, hey, we have to be better. Like as politicians, we have to be better. Like you said, we're pandering. So on our screen right now, for people that don't know, this is the letter that was sent out. What you're seeing right there is at the top is a communist flag with the American flag. And they're like, hey, this is great. Now, for people that don't know, because I didn't know, right, I'm going to show you. This is what their flag looks like currently. Well, the flag that they want to represent them before they were taken over by communist China. So going back to this, I just think we have to do better, right? Like we're sitting here and it was amazing to me. We have laws, we have bylaws in place as the GOP saying that there's time frames, things need to be done. There's procedures in place to run these caucuses, but those aren't followed, right? So when we start acting like Democrats, we stop acting like politicians that don't follow the laws, and there's this like 2-tiered justice system, people get disillusioned. People don't want to participate. People say, what's the point? So yes, I understand the people in charge want their people to be put in place. But you have to go through the right process. And if you lose, you lose.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And this was a complete missed opportunity, I think, for the Mass GOP because there's such a big population, big Vietnamese community in Dorchester. And this would have been a perfect opportunity to reach out and say, hey, we want to include you as part of the Mass GOP. We want to recruit you into the party. we want to help you build. We want you to help out, like reach out to folks in the community to help build this party. But what they did was pretty much the complete opposite. They said, no, all we really care about, like, we don't care about you. We don't care about anyone else. All we care about is controlling the state committee and controlling the Mass GOP, so we can work with the Democrats. So, we can jockey for these leadership positions in the House and the state legislature. So again, it's really just more about controlling the party and more nepotism. But they really missed an opportunity to really reach out to the Vietnamese community and really start building the Mass GOP from the ground up.
Well, you said it right. They're when you said it in the beginning, they sent this mailer out, tried getting the language right, tried being like, "Hey, we're here for you," only to turn around and do what was in their best interest. So the message that you were trying to get, you just burnt bridges for I don't know how long. So how do politicians that come by and want to do the right thing and like, "Hey, I'm going to do the right thing and I want to do the right thing," and they're like, you just sat there, sent out a mailer saying, "Hey, look, we support you. We want to do all this stuff," but you don't even follow your rules because you want to put your people in place. So what I have up right now is you found the video, and one of the bylaws states that it's supposed to be a secret vote for this, right? So the woman that they want to pick, she got up and talked, and it was funny because I'm like, why did you send me this video when you first saw it? Because I would have thought there would have been some discussion. I would have thought there would have been some more people coming up, or there would have been like these meetings and people talking. This doesn't even show like there was any real effort to have an open and honest dialogue or discussion to pick somebody. This woman gets up, and there might have been people before her, but the woman gets up, says her speech, and then they're like, "Let's vote." Now the vote is supposed to be private, so let's see what happens.
Entertain a motion to vote by acclamation.
Motion.
Second? Thank you. All in favor of Dr. Heinz Perrick, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, I declare Dr.
So I don't know if people could hear that too well. I'm sorry, the volume might have been low, but it was a voice vote. All in favor say aye. All not in favor say no. There was no no's. The ayes have it. That's not how it's supposed to go. And if we're not doing that right, what other shortcuts are we going to take? What other avenues are we going to skip just to get what we want? That doesn't prove to me that we're doing what's in the best for our constituents, or we're trying to do what's in the best for our constituents. What it tells me is they want what they want, you be damned, but every time it's an election season, we're going to be like, "We're here for you." Well, if you're here for me, then do the things the way they're supposed to be done. And again, I will say it to any faction of the Republican Party, because what I'm seeing now as a candidate, when I was a candidate, as not a candidate now, but who's thinking to run and still talk to people who ask if I'm going to run, they're getting so sick of state level politics that they're like this: "I'm going to support the candidate, screw the GOP." That's not the position the GOP wants to be in going to 2024, right? And if people don't see that soon, we're going to be in big trouble. We're going to be in very big trouble. So that's why, like I said, that's why I harp on these things. I attack these things. We sit there and we say we listen to our people. We're all about, Republicans. We're all about individualism and listening to our people. But we don't. We're just as bad as Democrats. And that's why people call people rhinos. It's just crazy. So I don't know what your final thoughts on this are.
Yeah, it's pretty ironic. You have the state committee candidates sent out this communist flag to people in an attempt to pander, and it's like this caucus was run pretty much out of the communist playbook. It's like every single, if you look at the Mass GOP bylaws, almost every single bylaw around the state committee caucus was violated in this vote. So they changed the location 24 hours beforehand. They didn't notify. They didn't give the proper notification to everyone. Then they proceeded with a vote by acclamation, which is like you said, a voice vote, as opposed to in the Mass GOP bylaws it says it's supposed to be by secret ballot, which I have issues with secret ballots, but that's how it's written in the bylaw.
Correct.
So this whole thing up and down was like pretty much straight out of a communist playbook, which is it's pretty sad to see out of the Massachusetts Republican Party, and it confirms the point that you have 60% of voters are unenrolled, and a lot of those voters want nothing to do with the Republican Party in Massachusetts, and you can clearly see why after a
Well,
caucus like this.
yeah, the disenfranchised. I think one of the good things, and you saw it with the Carrie Lake incident. I know it's kind of national, and not only that, when they were picking the new head of the GOP, and was that Mahit Dillon? What's her name? Dillon?
Carmeet Dillon.
Carmeet Dillon. That's it. When she was running and she lost, and most people in America said, we're done supporting the GOP. They don't want to listen to our voice. We're going to support candidates that we want. So I think the GOP is really going to start paying attention, because if any party is going to hold their elected officials' feet to the fire, it's going to be the GOPs. We know the Democrats aren't going to do that. They all just come together, and no matter who they put up, they just fall behind. So let's move on to the SVB Signature Bank whole contagion scenario. So, last week on our show, we were discussing SVB. Well, the last 3 weeks, we've been discussing SVB. And I read an article after we discussed, because I was researching that term contagion, and I told you, watch, they're going to use that a lot. And our old friend Barney Frank was back in the news, and I found this article very, very enlightening and kind of indicative to what I said a couple weeks ago when I talked about how politicians are going to use this for political advantage. They're gonna sit there and probably take over banks that don't need to be taken over. And I think there's some sort of plan, or they're really inept. Our politicians are really inept, and either one of those things, I think what happened is a lot of people should sit back and say, we stop screwing things up. So let me read a little bit of this article, and then we can discuss it. So this article I found says, Barney Frank's Signature Bank was seized to send banks a message. All right, right? So then you start reading it, and it says, a regulatory takeover of a New York-based bank was intended to send a message to U.S. banks to stay away from cryptocurrency business. A former member of Congress who was on the bank's board says. So that's Barney Frank. He's basically saying, first statement, this bank was taken over to send a message. Is that what the government's job is to do?
Yeah, it's funny. It's like you said, it's like this. It has very it's eerily similar to what happened in 2008. In 2008, you had the Federal Reserve, which is all pretty much smoke and mirrors, by the way. But they were saying, oh, everything's fine. We have all the tools that we need to deal with any crises. And sure enough, you had Bear Stearns collapsed in March, and then they said they had all the tools, and they invented new tools at the time. I think in 2008 it was like the total, it was like TARP, like total asset
TARP
relief program, and there was another one, TAF. So they started introducing all these new tools to bail out the banking system. The exact same thing has happened so far in 2023. They said they had all the tools that they needed, then all of a sudden they introduced, I think last Sunday or the Sunday before, the BTFP program, which pretty much announced unlimited liquidity to banks that need bailouts. And it's just, it's eerily similar to 2008. Obviously, like you called, the contagion word has become more popular in the press, and we're seeing that more and more often. And now you see yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We'll get to that, because it's going to be in there. I don't want to spoil it for everybody. So, so let me read a little bit more, and then we'll get to that, because trust me, it's the next couple of pages. Barney Frank also said this was just a way to tell people we don't want you dealing with crypto. And then it goes on. The bank said it was the first FDIC insured bank to launch a blockchain-based digital payments platform. Right? So then Barney Frank goes on to tell them that by Friday, there were more withdrawals based solely on the contagion from SVB. He said the situation had stabilized by the time Sunday that the New York regulators took it over. Right? And this is the third largest banking failure in the U.S. Let me go one more page, because he said something very telling, right? Let me adjust this for our people at home that are reading this. Frank said that the FDIC had agreed to insure the entire deposits on Friday rather than waiting until Monday. Signature would not have been taken over. And then at the bottom, like you said the last time, he said he expects some vindication when the bank is sold eventually. I believe they're going to get a very good price, Frank said, proof that it was not a bank problem. So for a lot of people that don't understand what's going on and what's being said here, okay, is the federal government is using that idea of contagion, right? It makes sense. We just got out of a pandemic, so use same terminology to get people to be afraid. Then what they do is they didn't do what they were supposed to do on Friday, and if they did what they were supposed to do on Friday, the bank wouldn't need to be taken over. But nope, the federal government, we're gonna make a example out of you, and we're gonna take you over because we don't want you dabbling in crypto. It's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know what you think. It just blows my mind that this is where we are with this.
Well, they have to take out the competition, right? So all these countries have been introducing central bank digital currencies, or
Yep.
CBDCs for
Yeah.
short. And obviously, this is the government's way of combating crypto, because I think at first crypto was seen as this kind of fringe technology that wasn't, a lot of people didn't think would take off, but obviously it has taken off. You've seen the market share of crypto; it's grown to over $2 trillion, and you've seen a lot of people pour money into it because they don't trust the banking system, they don't trust the Federal Reserve, they don't trust that. Like the banking system has become so complicated that a lot of people want nothing to do with it. They don't feel like their money is safe there. So obviously crypto has grown, and that's been proven in the market share that it's grown. And the government sees this as a potential threat, especially the banking industry. I mean, crypto hasn't really become fully mainstream yet, but it's becoming there. And I mean,
Well,
once it does, that's a huge threat to the banking industry in itself. So they're definitely, this is definitely something that they see as a potential risk down the road.
well, correct me if I'm wrong too. Like one of the big lures of cryptocurrency is privacy. Right? Between two people, they can do a transaction that's between two people and no one else has to know. One of the things that strikes me out, and I hope a lot of people realize this, and I think this is a good thing to talk about, and hopefully more people talk about this, is we're sitting here and big banks are failing. And it seems like the plan, if you listen to certain people, is they want like 6 banks to be left by 2025. They want to kill all banks except big banks. I go, how does that even make sense? We have banks that are too big to fail, doing stupid things, and the prescription to solve this problem is less banks, right? Like when I think it was the Great Depression, right? When they put all those banking rules in, and they broke up banks because they were too big. And over the years, laws have been loosened, regulations have been loosened, allowing these banks to get big again. And what they're going to sit here and tell people is like, oh, well, all these banks are failing. We have to help them out. And the thing we're going to do is make less banks. And we're also going to give you a currency that we're going to track every little thing we do, and you're going to have no privacy. I really hope people stop, think about it, and realize, hey, I'm going to call my elected official. Like, I don't want that. I think I read this week at least 21 states have started to do legislation against CBDC, and I hope it works. But I think that's one of the enumerated powers that the federal government has, is to have a currency. So unless something major happens, I think we're heading on this road, which I don't want. Like, I want to be able to transact with people. I want to go to a yard sale, not have to pull out my phone, and then the federal government's like, "Hey, you bought that," and the guy that bought it, like, you got to pay tax on that thing. I mean, is that really where we want to go? I mean, that sounds like a hellhole for me.
Yeah, and you brought up a great point too with transparency in the banking system, because once you put your money into a bank, we've talked about this before. It gets like lent out. Obviously, banks need to make money, so they lend it out as mortgages or other financial products. And there's really no transparency into what's being done with your money once
No.
it's inside the bank. And there's actually this great South Park episode where I think Kyle or someone donates $100, and he's like, "Thank you for your $100 deposit. We just invested it in foreign currency FX swaps, and it's gone."
It's gone.
He's like, "But wait, I just gave it to you." He's like, "And it's
And
gone.
it's
Next
gone.
person, please." He's like, "What do you
He's
mean?
like,
I
"You're no,
gave you the
you're no
money?"
longer a customer." So the next customer comes, and it just keeps playing. But and that was old. That was old too. I sat there, and if no one's watched it, you got to go find that. It's hilarious, but somewhat true.
Well, yeah, and that's what a lot of these banks have run into, where they take the deposits and they use it into these other financial products. And I mean, you see derivatives just blow absolutely out of control on banks' balance sheets, and these are some of the things that are getting them into trouble now. and now they're kind of scrambling for cash. So it's just lack of transparency, lack of trust. It's no reason. I mean, it's not hard to understand why crypto has become more popular recently when you have this stuff going on in the banking system.
Yeah. The other thing too, I don't think a lot of people understand is when a bank borrows money from the Fed, right, for their overnight from the discount window, they're borrowing it. They used to be a couple of years ago for almost nothing. So they're basically getting free money from the government, and then they go charge us crazy interest rates. So they're getting free money, they're charging us interest rates, and like, look, we're smart. And then any little thing that goes wrong, they crash. And again, I think this is one of those things. This is one of the sayings I have around. Hopefully, we get this taken off. Is a lot of people outsource their thinking to elite people or smart people or the experts. And I don't know what people have been doing the last 5 years, but if you're going to believe an expert, you're going to have your head checked because there's not too many experts I trust. Most of them are wrong all the time. And the problem is you have people ask simple questions of these experts and they have no answer. Like I said, Janet Yellen a couple months ago, oh, we're great, everything's great. And then this past Friday, she's calling an emergency meeting of banks. But she's sitting there telling the senator, oh, we're great. The banking institution's great. This is transitory inflation. And everyone else is saying it's not transitory. How the hell is this transitory? Because I'm Janet Yellen. And like you said, I get a lot of money from banks and I get to pick who succeeds and who fails. So one thing, like I said, hopefully out of this show, we get people talking and realize that just because the person is on the TV, just because they're an expert, doesn't mean they're right. Like we have to have critical thinkers. We have to have discussions that just aren't happening. And how can, Justin Thurber and Jimmy Davidson, two guys with a YouTube channel, call something a couple of weeks ago and then it comes true. But you have this person who's supposed to be an expert, Janet Yellen, who keeps getting things wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the experts. I mean, look at where we're just coming out of over the last couple of years on everything related with COVID. You had all the experts calling for all these like draconian measures to deal with COVID, and half of this stuff was just made up. Oh, you have to be 6 feet away, not 5 feet away. Oh, bars have to close at a certain time. It's like, oh, you have to put up you have to stand up as you're entering the restaurant. But once you sit down, everything's fine. You can take off your mask and you can eat. It's just like all this stuff was drummed up by the experts, but none of it had any scientific background or anything involved. So, I mean, if that alone doesn't make you question the experts, I don't know what will. And I think it's funny how the same experts that were the ones that were telling you COVID was the end of the world are now the ones saying, oh, don't worry, everything's fine and safe in the banking system. It's like, if that doesn't make you scratch your head, I don't know what will.
Listen, there's a lot of things hopefully in the coming weeks that we get to talk about. And this is kind of going, off what we're talking about right now. But that Anthony Fauci documentary on PBS came out and I started watching it. I just shook my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I want to just dice that up. Just take it what it is, play the clip, let people look at it and say, what's wrong with that? Right? The guy's in his house with his mask and his wife's with a mask and they're kissing. And I'm like, it's for the camera. And he's walking out of his office and he sees the camera crew. So he's like, oh, I forgot my mask. Like, you aren't wearing your mask. And the only reason why you did that is because the camera crew was there. You're not wearing your mask. And he's sitting down, mind you, after being fully vaccinated. He's sitting down talking to a guy that's in there, one of his coworkers, and he's doing the whole mask thing. I'm going to make myself something to eat because he was at Anthony Fauci's house, and he's walking around his whole house with his mask on, talking. As soon as he sits down, he takes it off. I'm like, what was the point? What was the point? So, like I said, it's very telling. It gives an inside look. Like, listen, granted, super smart guy, has a really good background. But that doesn't mean you're right on everything. And we need these dissenting voices. And that kind of goes back to the GOP caucus, like we were talking about, is if the people that are in charge aren't doing the right things, especially in this day and age with videos, with YouTube channels like this where we can talk about it and people can see things and someone can post a video online or that email can get out to me who doesn't know much about it. It's not even my area, so I'm sure a lot more people know. That stuff can get out. people seeing this stuff and they're starting to get really ticked off. We need to do better. I want to do better. So I don't know. Like, what, what do you think? We're gonna hit illegal licenses next to it. That's a whole other story.
Yeah, it's just a good point. It's like, what we're talking about is we're at the point where we don't need the problems that we have in society are not technology problems. They're people problems. And the problems that we're facing it isn't because there's not smart people around. It's because
Yes.
people are operating with bad intentions. It's like all we need really is to get people operating in good faith, and
Yes.
people that want to come to that have integrity and want to come to the right solutions, and that will get rid of a lot of the problems that we have. But if you look across the economy, you look across politics, most of it's because there's an agenda, there's money, there's a lot of stuff involved that people are a lot of resources that people are jockeying for. So that's really what it comes down to. It's like anytime you listen to a politician or anything, it's like you really have to find out what their true intentions are, what their agenda is. Do they really want to mean well by the people, or do they have some ulterior motive going on in the background?
Yeah, and like you said a little bit earlier, like in my phrase that I'm trying to get out there, so everyone, I'm gonna put on T-shirts, right? Don't outsource your thinking, right? Stop outsourcing your thinking. Like, I think we went to school and learned how to think, but I think this day and age people don't. People are told things and they just believe it. And you can present them with the facts and they won't change. And we gotta do better. Like, on a whole, we have to do better. I give this example. My daughter was in school and they just learned about how there was an equal pay act that they did back in what was it, 63, 67 or something. And then the girls in her class like, it's unfair, we're not getting paid the same. And she's like, we just got taught that companies can't do that, right? And there has to be other reasons why the pay is different, and they just don't want to believe it. And then what happens is all the studies come out and they said, hey, listen, they just grouped everyone together, didn't take into account differences in jobs, overtime, nothing. They grouped everyone's salary together, divided it, and say women make 18 cents less an hour. But if you do it by job, that goes away. But you tell that to people and they don't want to believe it because I was told and an expert told me. So who are you? Well, I'm a guy that can prove you the facts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a great interview, I think, with Thomas Sowell.
Oh,
And
I love Thomas
he
Sowell.
pretty much just picks apart that entire argument. He's like, I mean, think about it. It's like, women have the most rewardable, like hardest enjoying job, which is raising children, and a lot of
you're in
them.
big trouble.
No, I'm just saying it's like it's by nature. It's like women have babies.
I was a stay-at-home dad, so I had a rewardable job.
Yeah, but the majority, it's like, and it's like, but what so by just nature, you're gonna have stay-at-home moms, and if you could try to compare a stay-at-home mom to someone that's in the workforce, obviously there's going to be a salary difference there.
Yes.
But like when you adjust for those factors, if you look at men versus women that have 10 years of experience in the software industry that both have a college degree, all of a sudden those differences go away. So
Yeah.
it's just it's kind of a politician talking point, and they love to grandstand on that, but it that argument quickly disintegrates once you start looking into the details.
So again, in true transparency, and again, this show is a show about having people's voices heard, people being able to talk and have discussions, right? So a lot of people are probably like, I wouldn't go on your show, you wouldn't be fair. I would be fair. So if in the comments you'd love to come on a show, discuss some of the things and say how you're right, I would love that. Not because I'm right, because maybe I could learn something. However, if you would come on my show or our show, I would hope that what you would do is you would bring facts and be willing to listen to facts. And I think in these days it's people turn things off. And I used to tell there was a guy at my base who I loved him because we didn't agree on anything, but we could discuss. We could have big discussions. And at the end of it, we might not agree or we might have learned something, and that's how we learn. But if we're not able to do that, it's lost. Like, again, we have to all put our pride aside. Even the GOP, right? The GOP, whoever's in charge now at state level, whoever was in charge, let's put our pride aside. Let's work together and let's take back this state, right? It was funny. I went, oh, we're going to have, just to let you know, we're going to have a guest tonight, Aaron Packard. But, why don't you take us home on the last couple of things that we were talking about, Jimmy, about just doing some things different, not outsourcing our thinking, and how we can probably hopefully do better going forward in this state.
Yeah, good point. And I think this really leads into the next segment here with Aaron, where you look at what's happening in the Mass GOP, and you really see a lot of people that aren't operating in good faith, and these aren't technology problems. They're not anything else other than agendas that are being driven and kind of jockeying for control. So really what we need to have is people that are just operating in good faith, and I think where a lot of that starts is going to be in the state committee. So we like we talked about in the last video that we did, it's like we ran as candidates in the state rep races fully expecting to take on the Democrat Party, and what we found out was that it was the Republican Party that was getting in our own way. And that's because there was all these agendas being driven that we had no idea that they were happening at the time. So now I think it's time, in order for us to be successful in these state rep races going forward, we also have to look internally at what's going on inside the Mass GOP.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have Aaron Packard, who is going to be running for a state committee man for the Worcester and Middlesex. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Aaron. I appreciate you taking the time. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Thank you.
You're welcome. So
Yeah, sorry, I have a little technical glitch with my laptop, so I'm here on my trusty mobile phone.
hey, listen, thank God we get you on the mobile phone because we like having you on. We just let everyone know we did speak with Aaron a little this week just to get him up to speed on how this works or whatever. So it was a very good discussion. It was funny. My wife, when we got off the video, she was like, "You guys should have saved some of that for Sunday." I'm like, "Oh, I'm sure we can talk plenty on Sunday." So how about I do this, Aaron? Just let you give a little bit of a background about yourself, what you're running for, and then we'll have some discussions about some other things. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Awesome.
Excuse me.
Yep.
So, I just turned 50 a few weeks ago. A little fanfare, but I think all this political stuff is party enough for me. Oh, boy. Yeah, I was born and raised in Worcester and Holden in my youth. My later years, I'd say younger youth. Yeah, moved to Leominster, some elementary school, junior high, some high school. Back to Holden, graduated Wachusett Regional High School in 1991, and was a U.S. Army soldier, airborne infantry supply armorer. So yeah, I got to play with all of Uncle Sam's toys and tools, and very familiar with taking the oath of office, which has never left me. And my later years now, I've lived in the Leominster-Fitchburg area. I dabbled in a 20-year career off and on as a hairstylist, believe it or not, since I have no hair.
Wait, we have to see that. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, we might have lost him for a second. Might have lost him. We'll get him back in a second. So, yeah, that was, I think one of the good things that we were discussing. There you go. You back? You back?
Hey,
all right, there you go. Hey, no worries. We
deal.
get these technical difficulties.
Yes, I'm back.
All
I
right,
hear you.
perfect. So, one of the things I think that we, when we were talking, we quickly all realized we were veterans. And I think what happens as a veteran, I think we all agreed, is that we look at this whole political realm differently, right? So I guess my question to you is, what drives you to run for office, and why specifically this caucus for the state committee, man?
If we can back it up 3 years at this time,
Sure.
that's what started to drive me. And after I had suffered a brain injury, I'll even go further back. 2011, I was hit by a truck. I hastily ran across the street without looking both ways. He took his eyes off the road to change the radio, and oops, I bounced off his windshield, hit the ground, pavement head first like a lawn dart. For the kids out there that don't know what a lawn dart is, look it up. Yeah, straight head first. No bounce, then head, no straight head. I don't remember a thing. I woke up in a hospital room and been progressing ever since. And I guess the lingering drawback of the head injury, the brain injury, is I do not have any recollection of what I felt or what I thought during those 37, 38 years of my life. I know what happened. I know what didn't happen.
Yep.
Facts. I understand and realize all the facts. So trying to reintegrate socially in a world that was socially declining was quite traumatic for me. All those conservative values and working morals that my family instilled in me stayed with me, thankfully. So, my first recollection was, why the hell did Obama send a pallet of cash to a bunch of terrorists? That was my wake up.
Yeah.
And if I could have voted for Trump the first time, I would have. But I was, unfortunately, a transient trying to recuperate from the brain injury, etc.
Yes.
So fast forward. Flags went up, this COVID crap that went on, and I understand both of you soldiers were unduly processed out because of anti-vax.
Yep.
And I salute you. I myself am a true blood, and I'm proud of it.
Well, I will.
We don't throw that word around too much, but I am.
I will tell you this. Like, when I was there, I would never. I told all my troops. I said I would never tell you what to do medically, right?
Exactly.
That's the only thing I wanted, is I wanted to be able to make those medical decisions. So I would, if someone wanted it, didn't want it, that was all, should have been a personal decision based on their health risks. So that's why I said, yeah, I'm not taking it. But everyone else, even Jim, when he came and we discussed this, and he's like, this is what'll happen, this might happen, all the things that could happen. We would discuss it, but I said, at the end of the day, it's your decision, right? And that's what it has to be, and that's what it should be, a decision.
Individual sovereignty.
Yes.
And we were talking about the experts earlier, and it's funny too, because I mean this was a clear example of just how people have lost trust in a lot of the bureaucracies and government agencies in this country. Because I remember at the time, so I had gotten COVID naturally, so I had built a natural immunity to COVID, and it's completely funny, because if you look at some of the exceptions for the for sicknesses in the military, and it's like you can use natural immunity for almost everything, except for COVID was the only thing that natural immunity didn't apply to. And like for the longest time, the CDC was coming out with all these studies, and they kept trying to sweep natural immunity under the rug. And then for whatever reason, in 2023, natural immunity has made a comeback. It existed.
Oh yeah, 99.9% survival rate.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's just like, it's so funny, because it was like there for every other sickness except for COVID, and the CDC was denying it. And then all of a sudden, in the last few months, natural immunity's made a comeback.
Yeah. So Aaron, let's there's a couple of discussions we wanted to have tonight, and I think we saved one for you. We got to a little bit late of a start. But one thing we were going to discuss is there was an article this week about the mass driver's license laws. And I know you're personally affected. If you want to bring that up, you can. If you don't want to, but I'm going to read through an article. We can have a discussion about this article. Sound good?
Yeah, roger that. Go ahead.
All right. So I don't know if you can see my screen. Sometimes you can't because you're on the phone.
I do.
All right. So I put up a screen that says the mass driver's license law carries a $28 million in launch costs. Now, here's something that I think a lot of people aren't good at, and we need to get a lot better. And this is one of the things that served me well during the whole COVID phase is the title, which only people read, said one thing, but if you read the rest of what was going on, it didn't match the title. Or there was something different in there that made you go, wait, what's going on? So when I was reading this article, and I'll read it to you just in case you can't hear it, Aaron. I'll see if you guys can pick out. I'm probably just going to read the parts anyways, but just see what they do. So I think what the headline is to do is to piss people off. It's $28 million, right? So then if they write to their representative, they're like, you're spending $28 million. And they're like, listen, the budget's $10 billion. This is a drop in the bucket. So then most people like, okay, and go away, right? But when you get into what's really going on, it should really piss people off. So let me get to some of these doozies that were in this article. I don't know if people can see it. So as the Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles prepares for nearly 200,000, I repeat, 200,000 undocumented immigrants to soon be able to apply for a driver's license, the costs associated with implementing the new license access law this summer could rise as high as $28 million. Now, that they go on to tell you where that $28 million goes, right? The funds, if approved by the legislature, our representatives, would be used to train staff to verify new ID documents, hire more customer service representatives and road test examiners, invest in new technology to expand service operations, and develop procedures to ensure data privacy. So if you just, there's one more part of this too, but let's talk about this for a second. What is one of the biggest things when people use examples of what the government can't do well? We always use the DMV. Now, all of a sudden,
I'm sorry to laugh, but that's so true.
Right? Now, all of a sudden, there's 200,000 undocumented people, and your state representatives have a desire to help and fix things, to make things better. Why? Why are we so There's people going like, listen, for years, I had to wait in line. It's inefficient. It doesn't work. It's the example we use of government inefficiency and why government should have run things. But all of a sudden, we have these undocumented and representatives now can find money. And they sit there and they're like, to hire more customer service representatives, that could have helped 10 years ago.
It's funny too.
That could have helped last week with my friend Dean Tran.
Yeah.
It's funny too because you hit on two key issues. So one, it reminds me of I don't know if anyone's ever been to the Watertown DMV, but I had to go there one time early in the morning, and I get in there. It's like 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm hoping to get there early before the lines really build up, and I get there, and there, I kid you not, there is a line wrapping around the entire mall. This isn't like two stores in the mall. This was like a line across the entire mall, and I'm thinking there's some sort of like big event. There's some grand opening. There's something going on in the mall that
grand
day.
opening, all right.
I'm like so confused. I'm like, what are you in line for? Like, what am I missing out on here? And they're like, oh, this is for the RMV. I'm like, this is the RMV. You got to be kidding me. So it was like I pretty much had to take the whole day off of work just to get in there. And I thought I was getting in there early and I was going to get out real quick, but lo and behold.
Aaron, let me just Aaron and Jim, let me just read the last part, and then we can finish discussing it, because there's only one more part to this article that really stuck out to me. It wasn't a long article. Let me just pull it up. Right? So here's, again, remember what I said. It's kind of like a magician. They show you one hand while they're doing something behind your back with the other hand, right? So deep in this article, it says, immigrants without legal status who are granted a license will receive a standard Massachusetts driver's license with no marks or indications. It will look like every other standard driver's license we issue today. Right? And then the last part, again, going back a little bit to how they're trying to help out. We've had teams of people working hard on this in a variety of different fronts to ensure we update our processes. So why all of a sudden, two things, why all of a sudden do they want to fix this? And I think, Aaron, if memory serves me correctly, you were out there collecting signatures to go against the illegals getting driver's licenses or
Yeah,
undocumented
that's
driver's licenses.
correct.
And
Uh,
that was one of the concerns, right?
oh, it was a huge concern. And during my state rep run last year, concurrently, I was collecting signatures for these ballot initiatives. You know, no driver's licenses for illegal immigrants. The one word nobody understands is illegal.
Yep.
So, I got so many libtards when everybody deserves a chance. Yes, that is right. Everybody deserves a chance if you do it the right damn
Correct.
way. We have processes in place for a reason. But of course, the democratic socialist ideology going on in the Biden regime is just washed over almost every state in this union. In Massachusetts, being a bookend to California, their kissing cousins have totally demolished what is right. Hey, I'm all for giving a driver's license. Do it the right way.
Yep.
The other thing that's left out of that argument too, I think, is like priorities, right? So in the budget, there's only a certain amount of money that we can spend, and I mean we've seen it firsthand. You look at like veterans that have like done combat, served in combat times and all this wartime, all this other stuff, and then they come back home, and there's really no help for them. But then you see all this other money being spent and all these freebies given away, and no one wants to talk about like the priorities of what's given. And to me, that's just like a huge red flag right there. And
Well, it's not just a red flag, Jim. It's a slap in the face to the
right.
veterans,
Yeah.
both veterans and currently active. They're going to come home and say, what the heck? Well, these immigrants, illegal or not, are getting benefits before the men and women who serve the country to keep these freedoms that we have.
I think the unfortunate thing, and maybe this is how I look at life, so I view this different. But when I start out this discussion on this whole thing and how, like I said, they start off with $28 million, then you get into the meat of it, and it's a real slap in the face. Is I look at it this way: if veterans overwhelmingly voted for Democrats in Massachusetts, this money would be there to help them out. But because they don't, I think most politicians are looking for any group to sit there and like, we're helping you out and give us votes. And I know a lot of people said, hey, listen, they're not going to be able to vote. But that no indication on the license now means that you can walk in any place and vote. And that is why, in my opinion, that is why the money's there. That is why the effort's there. There's a rush. I could be wrong.
Two huge concerns. No, two huge concerns with this while I was collecting signatures. Even did a radio interview prior to my prior to election day. Was one, the indication on the license, all the socialist liberal Democrats were screaming, oh, it's racist, to signify that they're illegal or they're not registered citizens. And the other issue was that Galvin, hey, Secretary of the Commonwealth,
Yeah,
how
that's
appropriate you put up that picture. Perfect.
Thank you.
That the RMV database, including their own database, they can easily fix it so that these illegal immigrants will not be uploaded automatically as unenrolled, which they are going to be. It's an easy fix.
Correct.
I learned HTML back in 2006 for computer coding, and it's such an easy fix to change one number, one parenthesis, anything in that program. Do not automatically enroll these people as voters.
Well,
But
again,
they're doing it anyway. Oh, no, it can be trusted. I don't trust them as far as I can throw them.
Yeah. Well, again, right? You're saying that, and you just touched on a point I didn't even think of, and that's why I love having these discussions. Is they're spending $28 million, and they're having all these meetings, and no one's sitting there saying we have to do this right. Like a lot of people came out and voted a lot of their concerns, which are valid concerns, to make sure that it was indicated so they can't vote and they don't have all the privileges. They said it was for insurance purposes and because the police wanted it. A lot of police I talked to said, we don't want
No.
this, but for insurance. So if you want to say insurance, so if you get hit by an uninsured uh, immigrant, okay, that's one thing, but it should be indicated. And like you said, they have processes and they can do things. Take some of that money and do it right. The not doing it right speaks more to the what's going on, in my opinion, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Like I just said, that 28 million could easily be split between a couple of men and women to go into the database and put that safety valve on the upload of the RMV.
Yep.
It really is.
All
And
right.
it's all like you said, sleight of hand. They show you one thing and doing another.
Correct. All right. So I think that's kind of a good discussion on that whole thing. And again, we'll see. I guess there's a time frame that has to be passed to see if they even have the money. Again, one of the other things that the politicians do is they plan a lot, they offer a lot, and they don't deliver. So they might not even be able to fund it. So we'll see. One thing I want to bring up is your district, the Worcester Middlesex district, because you're running to be a state committee man. And as you stated earlier, you ran for state rep. Obviously, didn't win. Not a lot of Republicans did. Um, why? Why? What drives you to run for that office?
Is that I am a regular citizen, common, but there's nothing common about me.
Yeah.
I'm a working man. I don't collect any benefits or anything like that. I work. True, authentic civic duty. Something needs to be done, something needs to be said, something needs to be set right on the right path, etc. I stepped up to be committee man as the player on deck, if you will.
Sure.
Another friend and well respected member of the community here in Fitchburg was going to last year when it initially happened when Frank Ardinger retired from the seat. He is not able to do it this year. So I said, okay, I got you back. I'll fill in the spot. I'm the batter up, basically. And why? Because I want to inspire other regular, average citizens, working class. I don't care if you're poor or rich, just be involved. And I get a lot of Republicans who I proudly represent are afraid to be known as Republicans. They're afraid to speak out. That's why I'm stepping up. I will take your fear and go forward for you. We need to identify all these regular citizens who want to be involved. And me traipsing around Massachusetts out of my district last year started the ball for me. This is my neighborhood. This district, Worcester, Middlesex, is where I grew up. From Worcester all the way up here to the New Hampshire line of Fitchburg. It's huge. This is my backyard. This is the last vestige of red state left in Massachusetts, is the corridor of Worcester County. And the other side, the deep blue, are trying to take it over. Well, I want to conserve this backyard and protect it and give these other commoners around me the inspiration to just get involved, whether it's school committee, city council, which I'm also doing this year.
Awesome.
Whatever position you need to get involved in making impact. I may not win, but I certainly learn and move on to the next battle.
And Aaron, you just brought up a good point where you were talking about the state rep race, and you fully got in to be a leader for the Republican Party, which I commend you for, and I think is great. And I think we probably shared a little bit of a similar experience as well, because as people know, I was the treasurer for Mike Volcano's campaign, and as we got into it, we found out that
Outstanding man.
He's awesome.
Yes, yeah, great guy. I mean, we found
Sorry, I
out.
didn't mean to cut you off, Jim.
No.
Boom, I had to say he's a great guy. I love
Yeah,
that.
he is, and that's the thing is, like, we found out we were pretty much running his state rep race alone. Like we were getting into different towns. We found out none of the RTCs were organized, and our state committee people that were in the district were completely absent, and at times really working against us. We found out that the treasurer for the Mass GOP had shut down the bank accounts earlier in the year, and we got into this race with the same intentions that, hey, we want to compete against the Democrats, but we found out is we were getting kneecapped by our own party, and I think you experienced that maybe to an even bigger extent. And
Yeah.
we found out towards the end of the race, is that the Baker PAC, the PAC that is controlled by the Charlie Baker group that are trying to control the state committee, spent over like $20,000 on your Democrat opponent. They gave donations, $20,000 to your Democrat opponent, and then now I hear one of the other candidates in this state committee race that's likely another top contender received $20,000 from the Baker PAC and still lost his race. So I just wanted to see if you could kind of give a little bit of more background on your experience with that, because I just find that absolutely remarkable.
It is remarkable and surprising. At first, when I first found out, it really was a kick right in the groin. But then as I thought about it, I must be right over the target, right, Chief? I see you smiling. Right over the target. It's a badge of honor. You needed 20 grand to beat this guy, Mr. Common Citizen. That's okay. Why? Because they knew. I know. I do my research. I understand what's going on. You can't fool me. You can't bribe me. And once you cross me, you're out of my circle.
Yeah. One thing I
That's
one
pretty
thing I do
much,
like,
it's just ridiculous. The top five. I was in the top five with my good friend and trusted guide, Bruce Chester, had even more. Went to his opponent.
Yeah, you brought up a good point, Aaron, and it's one of the things that Jimmy and I, before you came on, were talking about, is how the GOP is doing things in this state, and they're really turning off a lot of people, a lot of the common people, and that was one of the biggest thing when I ran, and I'm sure probably when you ran, you heard this, is they're like, I'm voting for you because I trust in you, or you're just a regular person, you have you're honest, and you're not like the typical politician. And I don't want to be the typical politician. Again, when I brought up earlier, that maybe it's the veteran in us. We just want to serve. We want to serve.
Exactly, in service to others. It started way
Service
back
before
when
self.
I first enlisted.
Yep.
I
Service
signed a
before self.
blank check like everybody else.
Yep. And I think the good thing about it is we're, like you said, I love when you say common man. I just like, we're just regular people. And that's one thing I want to communicate to a lot of people is, as politicians, I know Jimmy's seen it, I'm sure you've seen it, Aaron, is there's a lot of people out there that feel discouraged. Like, there's not a lot of people that think like us. There's not a lot of people that want the change or that's needed. There really is. They just do a good job. The current administration does a good job of making us seem like it's a losing battle. And it's not.
The one thing that keeps me in the fight, okay, this is my second try for a seat. Even though it's not populous across the state, I'm still, putting my hat in the ring, running for a seat. The last year taught me something very well, and it's you get knocked down, you get back up. Abraham Lincoln ran for office like 7, 8 times before he was elected president. He ran for Congress, he ran for Senate, and then finally ran for president, and he won. If he had given up, where do you think we'd be right now? It's speculation, conjecture. You could guess, whatever, but it didn't happen. Why? He didn't give up. He didn't give up.
So for the people out there that are out there that don't know what a state committee man or state committee woman does, can you just give a brief explanation, or if you want to do, if you win, what, how you would run that position? Because just a little backstory for a lot of people, I had a state committee man or woman, and I've never met them. So it was a learning experience for me what they are, and I know a lot of people that are running now to hopefully change that dynamic. So Aaron, if you can just tell us what you believe the position should be, how you want to run it, and if it was run that way in the past in your district, or whatever you want to tell us.
Okay. Well, from my understanding and my knowledge, a committee person, man or woman, you you are not making legislation, you're not making law, you're not making anything like that that affects the commoners across the state. It is kind of like a group leader, if you will. You, from my interaction with Frank Ardinger this past cycle and into now, you make your rounds to each of the committees, the town committees, the city committees. You talk with them. You encourage their growth. You say, and you ask them, how can we grow your group? What do you need to have happen? Well, that's where the committee person comes in and helps facilitate that. Kind of like you interview people, are you in with the Republicans? Do you have a certain personal goal? Are you just angry at the system that you want to get back at them, or do you have a logical mindset to it? You see how these men and women fit the model of conservatism, and which is quite ironic that Frank, came and said, "Hey, we need to get Aaron elected in my committee and whatnot." And turns around and endorses somebody else for this committee man position. So loyalty is not too strong, even in the uppers or
Yep.
the lowers. But yeah, you make your rounds, you interact, you give your experience. Hey, I just ran last year, not 10 years ago, not 20 years ago. I just did this last year.
Yeah.
You have to meet people. You have to talk to people. You have to be involved in the community, whether you're just a ticket taker, a note taker, or you're up front speaking with people. You have to get involved so that the conversation is continuous. That's why they wanted us shut down during 2020, so nobody would be talking to each other like old school in the pubs and taverns and restaurants and whatnot.
Yep.
That's how our founders did it.
Yeah, one of the things that I really like about your candidacy too is like a lot of this stuff like you've pretty much built your entire campaign on your own and from scratch. It's like you haven't received this big PAC money. You're not beholden to anybody. It's like you are your own man, and like we were talking about earlier, it's like what we need is good people operating in good faith to to move the party forward and to grow the party. I mean, what we saw out of the state committee over the last year, where we had half of the state committee members boycott their jobs for over a year, preventing a quorum so that the Mass GOP couldn't get any official business done. You had people shutting down the bank accounts. I'm just like, you look at that as an outsider, and you can't help but shake your head. And it's like, no wonder why nothing gets done in this party when you have state committee members like that. So, it's a breath of fresh air that we have an outsider coming in and someone that can think for themselves and that aren't beholden to any PAC money or anything like that. So I really commend,
I'm definitely outside the box, and I'll always be that way. No, really, it's. I am an outsider. I have absolutely nothing to lose. Why? I don't have anything to lose. My children are pretty much grown. Yes, I still have skin in the game. My grandchildren are young, elementary. My youngest child is 16 this year. She's a sophomore. I'm very proud that she was able to decide on her own critical thought that a lot of our youth don't have. So I know I've done something right. She wanted out of Leominster Public High School because it was atrociously what is that? A dystopia. Yeah. It was open doors and sex in the bathrooms. She chose to go to St. Bernard's Catholic School.
Good.
I'm not Catholic. Her mom is. And I'm so very proud and thankful that she had that option to do that.
Yeah, it's that's another thing we should probably talk about and maybe hit on in the future too. We'll have you back, Aaron.
Oh yeah,
I think
later on.
I think a lot of parents, and this is sad, right? A lot of parents are starting to look at alternatives. You see so much about take your kids out of school, or be more involved in the school system, and their elected officials are pushing back on that narrative. Well, what are you going to do? Are you going to listen to your people, listen to the people that voted you in that you're supposed to represent? And if you're not, people are going to be like, we're done with you and do something else. So I give your daughter credit for making that decision. I know a lot of people making that decision. I know a lot of people, if they could actually afford to do it, they'd pull their kids out in a heartbeat. And I think what has to happen, and again, I think there's going to be a lot of soul searching, hopefully on both sides, Democrat and Republican, over the next year and a half, 2 years during election, a lot of soul searching to say, listen, we were elected to represent our constituents, plain and simple. And they're starting to get ticked off. They don't believe us, and they're finding their own ways to do things. That's not how this government's supposed to work, right? How the government's supposed to work is we elect you and you're basically our employee and you do what we would like you to do. And if you do that, we're happy, we go about our business, and we don't have to worry about all these other things. But now you have all these people moving out of the state,
Right.
pulling
You know,
out
and
of school, homeschooling. You have all this stuff going on, and I just shake my head and I'm like, I don't understand. And maybe, I don't know if it's, they just feel like no matter what happens, they're going to get reelected, so they don't care. But this one party rule in Massachusetts, that has to change. And the GOP has to be better, so we're a better alternative.
you know, I made sure I started looking into everything. And the main fundamental is what you keyed on, Justin, is serving the people.
Yep.
Now, I was asked to, you back down from this committee man thing. No, I'm not backing down. Because then what would the crew that I'm trying to support think of me? They'd be useless.
Yes.
I'd be useless. They'd lose respect for me. No, I quit. I give up. That happened to me all the time before brain injury. I used to quit everything, afraid. Oh, no, I'm not afraid anymore. These citizens, these voters, they want somebody who they can, God forbid, trust. I'm a civil servant. Yeah. I'll never be a politician. Yeah. I'm not glad handing anybody. I've seen it happen. It's happened to me. I'm not letting down my team. There's two wolves in a pack. Everybody thinks of the alpha wolf, the lead attacker. I'm not the lead attacker. I'm the second alpha.
So one thing, when we talked earlier this week, we were going through some getting to know you type things. I made mention that I wish you had won. I'd wish Mike Volcano had won. I'd wish I won. I think, and it's not being selfish. It's what I told everyone during my race, and what I still believe today is we need candidates that are old school candidates that want to represent people and want to show the people again what a representative should be. A representative isn't a person who goes up to the state house, votes on bills, doesn't know what's in the bills, and then on election day when you have their sign out there with all their voting records saying, "I didn't vote for that." Yes, you did. Right? You don't even know what you're voting on, right? Or they're voting on things like driver's license for illegal immigrants. And you're sitting here, and a lot of people in a lot of these towns, especially in my district, when the numbers came out, overwhelmingly voted against it. So why did their state rep vote for it? Because their state reps don't care. And I try telling people, if you vote for me, I am going to be a representative of you. And I know
Money.
you said the same thing too. Like if you and I and Mike Volcano got to the state house and they said, Justin, you need to vote on this bill, and my people like, no, you're voting no, we'd vote no. We're a
Exactly.
representative government.
Justin, it was
Exactly.
funny on election day. You had a few signs up that had your opponent's voting record that was in plain black and white, and your opponent was like looking at it. Like I think that might have been the first time she had actually seen her voting record.
Yes.
She just rubber stamps everything that comes through. I don't even think she looks at what she's voting for. So I literally think she was like squinting, like looking at what your signs were showing her voting record. I think that might have been the first time she had ever actually seen her voting record in black and white.
I heard she drove around to polling locations, and again, this is what I heard, and was yelling at my volunteers. That's a lie. That's not true. And the whole time of my campaign, I tried staying above board, being truthful, being honest. Like I said, setting the example. So her voting record was on my website, and I put links to a conservative and progressive website that you could go to and click on either one you wanted, just to show that was her voting record. And the funny thing about it is, I think it's something that a lot of people should do, is the conservative one, if it was for raising taxes, let's say, the conservative one's like, hey, listen, raising taxes hurts everybody. And if it was the progressive one, it'd say raising taxes helps everybody, right? But the vote was the vote. So
Yeah.
when you can't dispute it. So again, I don't know why they don't know their voting record. I think it's another thing going forward too that, Aaron, if I can make a suggestion, I'm going to make this to every politician that's running.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Is what we have to do is we have to track everything they're doing all the time, and constantly let our people know in our districts, in our town, wherever we are. Hey, listen, do you know your representative just voted for another $4 billion budget? And that's what they just did. It was like, oh, we need this amendment to the budget because we need more money. And I think Jimmy even mentioned, I think what happened is because we had such a surplus and they had to pay money back to us, it pissed them off. And like, we're never going to pay money back to you again. So we're just going to keep spending your money like crazy because we don't want to give your money back. These are the things that people should know. But because they operate in darkness and people don't pay attention too much, and because we don't sit there and let people know what they're doing, they kind of get away with it, and that has to end too. And again, I don't care what side you're on. If you're not doing what's right for Massachusetts and the residents of Massachusetts, I don't care what side you're on. We're going to put it on blast. We need to get back to showing what the GOP is about, what conservatism's about, and let's just get back to what it should be.
Jim, you look like you want to say something. I have something on my mind, but go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that not only are the taxes increasing, but in my town, they're redirecting all the money back into the city. So like Chapter 70 has been a huge issue. Usually the town can expect like $300,000-$400,000 from Chapter 70, and like it usually increases year over year. Where this year that money was completely capped. It was like 0.5%, and all that money is getting redirected to the city. So it's like that's another. I mean, we all knew it was going to happen. You know, Maura Healey, big time Democrat, redirects money from all these towns into big cities. So it's like if you look at Chapter 70 education, so that was a big issue that's hitting our town, and yeah, we're seeing that all across the state.
So the thing that I had on my mind, if I may go back to committee
Sure.
man position, a couple of weeks ago, there was a meet and greet surprise, a little bit of debate, which is great. Debate amongst candidates is very good. We saw that happen with McCarthy in Congress. Very healthy, robust debate. It has to happen. So anyway, the committee woman looks at me and goes, "I don't know you. Um, I just ran around Fitchburg and part of Lunenburg running for state rep." See, committee person, man or woman, should know who the hell is running for office in their district, for crying out loud.
Isn't
I
that
want to
amazing?
work. I want to work with people. I do, but if leadership, quote unquote, is mistermed, is supposed to be there for us to turn to for help or direction, doesn't know who the hell you are until a year later. Come on.
Yep.
You
So
have to know who is traipsing around in your yard. You have to.
hopefully,
2/3 of the races in Massachusetts went uncontested, and that includes a lot of the Republican races. And it's just sad that even the ones that we do contest, the state committee that's in there now have no idea who's running, where they're running. It's just a complete mess.
all right. So Aaron, if you can just tell us a little bit about your upcoming caucus. It's Saturday, April 1st. It's at 10. I know there was some confusion between 10 and 11. It's finalized at 10 a.m. Um, I don't think a lot of people can show up, except the people that have been identified, right? You have to be on an RTC.
Yeah, you have to be in an RTC and identified.
So those people know. But what I hope you could do is just give us some closing statements. I would also, I think this is a great opportunity to get this out to people to join the RTCs, because one of the things that I'm seeing, and
Absolutely.
I'm sure everyone's seeing it, is these RTCs can have up to 35 voting members. And those 35 voting members, if an RTC has it, can vote in these caucuses. A lot of RTCs don't have that. So right now what's happening is you're having one, two, three, maybe four people vote at these caucuses, and your voice isn't getting heard. So for all, it's unfortunate. I think for years, I'd say people have been distracted with sports, concerts, before COVID happened. And then I think when COVID happened, people got less distracted. They became a little more involved. And I hope to see that continue. And if things are going bad and if things are going not the way you like it to go and you feel like you can't do something, you can join an RTC. Make your voice heard. You'll be able to meet people, see that there's other people out there that feel like you want to make change, and you don't have to do what Aaron's doing. You don't have to do what Jimmy's doing. You don't have to do what I'm doing. But you know what you could do? You could just go out, meet people, and support people. Whether it's standing at a standout, whether it's donating money to them during a campaign, whether it's just
Right.
telling people, "Hey, listen, this guy Aaron's a great guy," or getting on an RTC and participating locally in your town and voting on state committee, men and women, because there's one each, that want to make change, that want to make things better. So I'll let you have the last couple of minutes about what you expect to happen and take it from there.
All right. Well, the caucus for committeeman, a vacant seat here in the Worcester Middlesex District, is Saturday, April 1st, 10 a.m. sharp. We're asking those people we've reached out to get there early. We don't want any unforeseen mishaps. And also, too, possibly a little standout for the Pac-Man, 9:30, okay? I'll have some signs available. And we take this vote and it comes to who gets the most. It's pretty clear to me. The be easy to do. Now, me as being committee man, I don't make any promises. The only promise I've made in the past year and a half is I don't quit. I promise I will not quit. People around me know this. I don't. Once I put my mind to something, I follow through. I make the commitment both mentally and physically and spiritually. So here's the deal. I cannot show any favoritism as a committee man once elected. What I can do is help guide you in the right process and the right direction should you want to run for office. Why? I have real-time practical experience as of this past year. It's fact. So I am hoping that you can go and be there in Lancaster at the Lancaster Center at for 9:30, 10 o'clock. We'll be there waiting for your vote to come in. Okay? And if anybody, hey, win or lose, I will be out there to help each and every one of your RTCs. You have my on-air promise, which is very few, that I'll help anybody. And I already told Sterling that. Win or lose, I'm there to help you build your RTC. It started with me here in Fitchburg, and it's grown. I joined, and it's been going and going and going. And that's what I want to see. People need to be involved. Hold a clipboard. Provide pens or supplies. Provide rides to those people who can't get around. Contact me. Let me know if you need that ride. I'm more than happy to drive you town to town. You need to get there, I'm there. You need something done, I'm the man.
Yep.
I'm not an academia brain, but it is important. But you want something done, I'm the guy to get it done.
Well, we thank you for coming on our show. Like I said, we'll definitely have you back in the future. One thing I think I mentioned to you during our meeting at the beginning of this week was at the end of the show, I usually like to pick a video, something either happy or inspirational or just something that someone did good, because I always want to, end the show on a good note, right? A lot of times we talk about this politics stuff and people like, who cares? And there is a lot of good that happens in this world. There's a lot of good people, a lot of quality people. And what's kind of funny is we didn't discuss this. I just found this video probably after we talked, and I wanted to use it. And it kind of correlates to what you said. Like, you just are going to help and you're going to do something. So let me play the video. If you can't see it, Aaron, let me know once the video's done playing. And then what we'll do is we'll just discuss it really quick. So hold on one second.
No problem, Chief.
I don't know if you can see it. All right. I don't know if you can see that
I
video.
wasn't able to see it, but
Okay,
it's
so what happened there is a black and white happened 3 years ago, I found out. And what's happening is a bus driver driving a bus of kids, and all of a sudden he starts suffering a heart attack. Like I said, this happened 3 years ago. And one kid jumped up, took control of the wheel, trying to get the brake, call 911, and then another kid comes up and helps him out. And, other kids are getting the phone to call 911. The bus is still moving. He's trying to do CPR, trying to figure something out. And again, to me, it's funny how this video and what you said kind of go hand in hand, because there's a lot of people just cruising along with life, right? And then sometimes someone needs to stand up. Who's it going to be? We need
people
a lot
are
of
made
people to
fight
stand
or
up.
flight.
Yeah.
Fight or flight. And I choose fight.
Yeah. And again, like, it's great that a kid did it.
Oh,
Didn't know
that's a
much.
shining example of what the youth should be.
Yes. And again, like, we don't know much. And Jimmy could speak to this, as when we started out in this campaign, like, we didn't know a lot. But you said someone has to. And someone has to. And not every kid on that bus could get up and do the chest compressions. Not every kid on that bus could get up and hit the brakes. Not every.
Someone has to rip the Band-Aid off and
Yes.
do it.
Yeah. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, what I loved about that video is the kid. I think you could hear him say is he doesn't know how to do CPR.
Yes.
But he was still making an attempt to apply it. You know, in
He
a way
made
that
the effort. The
Yeah.
effort goes a long, long way.
And that's the thing is like he actually wasn't like far off. He was trying to give chest compressions, which is like probably a lot better than doing nothing in that situation. And
Right.
that's I think the big theme of this is it's easy to kind of sit back, watch some football, watch sports or whatever. When an event happens, a lot of kids take out their cell phone and just record it. They're not really trying to help solve the problem. But just by having that one person or a couple of people stand up and start asking questions or start doing the right thing, even if they don't know 100%
Just
what
one.
at the time, it's going to be a lot better than doing nothing. And that's really how you change the course of the direction you're on. And that's exactly what those kids did. If they had done nothing in that situation, that might have been a bad result. But the fact that they were alert and that they were paying attention and trying to do the right thing, they might have saved everyone's life on that bus that day.
Yeah. So we wish you all the luck, obviously, and we're with you. And what you said is, win, lose, or draw, on April 1st. We know you'll be there. We're gonna be there too, and that's what we have to do. Like, maybe we fumble our ways through this, but you know what? We stood up, and I don't think I'm ever gonna sit back down. Well, thank you for watching the Justin Thurber Show. I think we're going to change the name to that. And thank you, Jimmy, again, as always. I appreciate you coming on and, giving your advice and your knowledge. And everyone, have a wonderful day.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure as
Yep.
always.